Well, welcome everybody. This is the first event for the May schedule of the Sustainability and Resilience virtual gatherings. We are fortunate to be joined by Chef Pam Adams, live from the UMass Bake Shop. And she is going to be walking us through some basic bread baking techniques that you can do at home. Just for those who haven't joined us before and for those who have joined us before, we will take questions in the chat throughout the event, and I'll be asking them. I'll be sharing them with Chef Pam, and then at the end we'll leave a little bit of time to have additional questions. So please feel free to shoot us any questions in the chat, and we also ask that you put into chat your name, your group, and your email so that we can send some follow-up information. We are getting all of that follow-up resources together to be able to not only post on the employees resource page, but we'll also be sharing them with you directly. All right, and without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Chef Pam.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Funny, Cinco de Mayo falling on Taco Tuesday, but all that ruined by a virus named after Mexican beer. What's going on? Anyways, I'm just messing. So, bread. We're doing some pan bread today, but I'm doing things a little bit backwards because it's really hot in my kitchen. So all of my yeast is moving really fast. So all the stages that I've set up for things to kind of move slower so that I can go step by step has kind of been foiled. So I'm going to start with the shaping and the panning. So I have these foil pans here that you can get at the grocery store. They're already sprayed. Get my dough. This is just a basic pan bread, if you will. Nice and easy to make. I've used the local flour for this from ground up. So I take my dough and I'm going to press it down kind of into a rectangle shape. I'm having the table give me a little bit of traction as I pull it. Okay, gently pulling, pressing it down into a rectangle. So you don't want it to press it too long so it's not bigger than your pan. And then I'm going to start from here and I'm going to fold it down. Okay, if you see, I'm coming with my thumbs this way and I'm gently pulling it, letting the table do the work for me. My dough is really overproofed. And then I take the ends and I push them in as I kind of gently pull the dough. So I want my seam to kind of be straight, okay? Then I'm going to seal the seam and I'm going to pinch the ends, turn it around. And again, I'm going to let the table just give me some traction. Seam side down. Pushing the ends.
Chef Pam, should you be really gentle while you're doing this?
Yes. That's why I'm letting the table do a lot of that work for me.
Is this a regular white bread or?
It is a regular white bread. I've used 100% of the local bread flour. What I'm finding is that I'm having a funny reaction. I normally make this bread completely out of white bread flour, but I've tried using the local bread flour and the properties are a little bit different. So the next mix that I make, I'm going to do half of the local and half of the store-bought bread flour.
If folks are interested in the ground up bread flour, it comes from Hadley and you can order it online, and some stores are starting to carry it as well now.
So I'm going to put this back in my bag. Cover it up so that the gases don't escape. And I'm going to put it in a nice warm area, which is over here by my steam kettle. We'll let that rest for about 20 minutes and we'll see how we go, 20 to 30. Okay, so back to where we should be, step one. I'm going to be using instant yeast. So instant yeast, my water. I'm not using cold water. I'm using a little bit lukewarm water. It should be about 68 degrees. So if you have your thermometer, it's always good to have a thermometer when making bread. Add my water, a little whisk here, kind of whisk it in. That helps to start to activate it. And then I'll add my sugar, my milk powder, shortening, my mixture half and half of bread flour, local and General Mills, and then my salt. On the mixer we go. I'm gonna put it on stir until it starts to come together. If you want to take a look at it. If I were to crank it all the way up, it would be a little bit catastrophic. We used to have a mixer here in the bake shop that it had to be on in order for you to change the gears. So it was actually really funny at 3 a.m. and half asleep and you have a bunch of flour and you didn't realize that it's on speed 4 and you turn it on. It really makes for a fun morning, really.
So if folks don't have one of the mixers in their house, can they just get in there and work it?
Yes, I actually have done another video that I think is to come, where you can just mix the flour and the water by hand on your table. Marlene, when is that one coming out, do you think? Yeah, this week. So
I got a couple other questions about, do you need to use milk powder rather than liquid milk?
No, you can use liquid milk. That's fine.
Okay, and then how about sugar? Is there alternatives like honey or?
You can use honey. You can use molasses. You can use agave. It's just adding a liquid. It's just in liquid form, so you have to watch it because it will brown differently.
Okay.
When flour is mixed, just to kind of give you a little bit of a science too, when flour is mixed with water, the gluten and mixed like kneaded, the gluten and gliadin proteins bond together to form sheets of flexible, resilient film called gluten. The gluten is what traps the air and gases from the yeast, which causes the bread to rise. The kneading also helps to distribute the yeast evenly throughout the dough. So just kind of that. And then when we go into the fermentation is when the yeast feeds and it multiplies. It also develops the flavor of the dough. So I just wanted to kind of give you that little scientific tidbit.
So if you were going to use liquid milk or like a honey, would you have to pay attention about using less water?
No, the milk you can substitute equal parts. With the water, you can cut back the water a little bit for the honey, but I mean it's such a small amount on the honey that it's really nominal.
Okay.
Thank you. When you make bread, water is great for bread. So it's very gently working out here. I would take it off the mixer here and work it, but I've injured my shoulder last night. If you don't have, so you can use fresh yeast for this as well. But if you don't have fresh yeast and you want to use instant yeast like I did, you want to multiply that by 0.33 or vice versa. If you want to use fresh yeast, I'm going to give you the recipe for both ways, for the amounts, both in the fresh and in the instant. Everything, I scale everything for accuracy. I mean, I know a lot of people just use cups and teaspoons, but when you scale it, you'll have an accurate product every single time.
So that means all those ingredients
weighing it? Yes, weighing it. So you can get this handy dandy scale online or Wally World for, I don't know, 10 bucks, 15 bucks. While that's doing its thing, I'm going to move on to something else. This is a flatbread. So we're going to do yeasted bread, and now I'm going to do a flatbread. So I'm doing a sweet potato flatbread. I've boiled the sweet potato earlier, kept it nice and warm. Taken the skin off, and I've just mashed with a fork. I've mashed the sweet potato into cup measure. And this is a recipe that a friend of mine's grandma used to make for her when she was a kid. So, you know, there was no scaling with scales. It was just eyeballing, really. But she said, just use half and half. Just go half and half with everything. You know, equal parts rather. When you mix your dough, bread dough, you always make sure you keep an eye on it so it doesn't get away from you. You can do this with regular potatoes as well. It doesn't have to be sweet potatoes.
What about pumpkin?
You can try it. Why not?
So when you said you don't want your bread to get away from you, can you say a little bit more about that?
You want to watch for the gluten formation. So right now it's really raggedy, so that gluten formation is not where it should be right now. So you're looking for a smooth dough. But then the other thing too is if you're using a bowl like this, the bowl could technically jump off the mixer.
Got it.
So you're looking for a smooth texture dough. All right.
Is that the same flour mix as before?
What is the flour mix?
The flour that you have, the half flour, half potatoes, the same flour mix as you've used in the bread earlier?
No, this one is this one I just used the local all-purpose flour. So this is local all-purpose flour and a local sweet potato. And pull out a little bit more flour here. You make it into a log. Yeah, fun. If you got little kids, this is a fun little project for them to do.
So your video went off. Oh, there you go.
All right, and then you just cut it into portions. You make little balls out of it. That gluten is starting to come together, so the machine's getting a little bit more of a workout.
So roughly, Chef Pam, how long would the kneading take?
I've got it on a slow speed right now. So it's going to take probably about 8 to 10 minutes mixing on slow speed.
Okay.
I'm probably going to finish it off by hand here. I could crank it up to second speed, but I'm trying to multitask and get as much done here as possible. So that's why I've left it on slow speed.
Thank you.
I would normally kick it up to about second speed and have it mixed for a total of about 4 to 6 minutes.
Great.
All right, I got all my little balls here. Nice cast iron skillet. This actually was a wedding present from my parents over 60 some years ago. And it is great for this. So you got all your little dough balls here, and you can do it for several different ways. You can either pat it out. So if you got kids that you're trying to entertain, pat them out this way, or you can roll it. So here we go with the mixture. This is what I'm talking about. I'm just gonna crank this up really quick just to kind of finish mixing it off and let it ferment, and I'll come back to this. Take a look in there. So if you see now, it's a little bit more smooth. The dough is more smooth. So the gluten is starting to form. I know Simon's probably cringing over the fact that I'm completely ripping this gears on this machine. He enjoys kneading the dough. Yeah, this dough is good.
So if you were kneading it by hand, how long do you think you should be kneading it?
I would say probably a good 10 to 15 minutes or so. Basically, you're looking for some gluten formation. So you saw how ragged it was to begin with. But if you look at it now, it's a little bit more elasticy. And as you pull it, you can kind of see a window pane. So I'm good at this point. So basically, I just want to put it into a nice round shape. This helps to trap the gases. I have a greased bowl, a sprayed bowl. Get the top of it greased, okay? Put a bag over it.
So there's a question. There's a question about why grease the bowl.
So your dough doesn't stick to it.
And can you put a like towel over it, or is does it help it to have the plastic?
It helps it to have the plastic. You can use a towel. I prefer, actually, when I do bread at home, I use plastic, like, you know, just the grocery bag plastic. And then I also put a towel over it just to keep it nice and warm.
Got it.
Sorry? You're about to be full of flour. So there's the first one. The reason why I chose sweet potato is just because sweet potato is just so versatile. You can do so many different things with it. You can use either a sweet topping to go on it. You can make like a hummus with it. You can do like a type of ranch dip, cinnamon butter.
And just reminding everybody, this is literally the potato and flour.
That's it, potato and flour. If you'd like to add a little salt to it, you can add a little salt to it, or the cool thing is you can add any sort of spice that your little heart desires.
Mm.
But yes, it's a peasant sort of flatbread. My friend's grandmother was very, very poor. And so in order to feed the family, she tried to get creative with what she had. And they had lots of potatoes and they had flour. So she was able to make flatbreads for their stew and whatnot.
Would this work with other kinds of flour, like whole wheat flour or buckwheat flour?
I would say give it a try. The recipe that I was given was for an all-purpose flour, but I don't see why not, in particular with the whole wheat flour. You can try, maybe do a gluten-free one. Patty cakes, a whole new
So are they supposed to puff up or just wait till they're brown?
They will puff. They will puff a little bit. You know, I find it really interesting to work with different flours, in particular with local flours and fresh milled flours. You get such a varying degree of performance from the different flours. You know, and the other thing too that affects your bread is the temperature of your kitchen, the temperature of your water, whether it's humid outside, the friction in your bowl as you mix it. Is a hard wheat flour, a soft wheat flour.
Do you have a favorite?
I wouldn't say necessarily have a favorite, but I really am enjoying ground ups flour. It's been fun to play around with that.
So I have another question about, could you add an egg for protein to that recipe?
That's a very good question. Grandma only said flour and potato. But I did wonder about, I wonder what the egg would do. It would make it puff up more.
A fried egg on top might be nice.
Yeah. You see here, it's starting to puff. Puffing up. They're starting to puff. What I find is these things actually hold pretty nicely for several hours. So just trying out grandma's recipe and playing around with it before this session, I was curious to see how long could I cook them ahead of time and how long would they stay. And they were pretty good for, I tested them an hour into it, 2 hours into it, 6 hours into it, flavor wise, and just the flexibility. Oh, here they are, they're really puffing now. The flexibility of them was kind of fun.
They look delicious. I have a comment that says, obviously I'm hungry right now. Chef Pam is making it worse.
Marlene, you should share your cheesecake with whoever's hungry.
If you want to join Chef Pam at 4 a.m., you might get some cheesecake.
True. All right, so all of my flatbread is rolled out. Trying to keep mindful of the time frame that I've got going on here. So I'm going to move on to the next bit, which is a quick bread. Ooh, look at that one.
So did you put anything into the pan, or is it just dry frying it?
It's just dry.
Dry.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you wanted to roll the bread out and then save it for later to do the in the pan, could you do that? And how would you keep them?
Yeah, I actually did. I rolled them out and floured and stacked them for a few hours, and they held up just fine. You just got to make sure that you put something between them so that they don't stick. Flour them well enough.
They really got puffy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on low heat?
Low heat. It's the beauty of cast iron. It cooks really well. Marlene, there you go. Go burn yourself. That's the fun of baking. You get to throw flour everywhere. Get all messy. Get the kids involved, have a flour fight. I'm gonna check on my dough really quick while it's fermenting.
How is it,
Nicely over
Marlene?
here in the corner.
You can't hear her, but she's saying it's
She
so
said it's
good.
delicious. Sorry, I have the microphone in my ear.
Yeah.
She loves her job, she says.
Yeah.
Okay, raisin bread. Marlene already had some when she came in at 4 a.m. this morning. Just teasing. Oh, she did have it, just not at 4 a.m. Okay, so this is a quick bread. It's made with Raisin Bran cereal. You can make it with Wheaties if you have Wheaties as well. You don't have Raisin Bran. It's funny, I did a little bit of a survey. I'm like, how many people really do have Raisin Bran in their house? And of course, the younger crowd, and they laughed at me. They're like, just saying. Okay, so in here, I have the cereal along with the milk and the honey. And the beautiful thing is you can mix this by hand or you can put it on the mixer. I choose to put it on the mixer.
So that's liquid milk, right?
Yes, this is, and it's been soaking. So you see the cereal soaked up all the flour, and sorry, all the milk and the honey. So that was my sugar, baking powder, and salt. And now I add my flour, and I need to grab a paddle.
And this is the all-purpose flour again?
Correct, all-purpose flour from ground up. So again, I'm using the foil tins that you can get from the grocery store.
If you have your own bread pans, do you have to cook it any differently, or do those cook quicker?
The foil does tend to cook a bit quicker. Say if you were to have a heavy glass, darker pans, baking pans do go hotter as well, faster, but it's about the same.
Mm-hmm.
So you're mixing it just until it comes together. It's nice and thick. Very thick. And again, you would scale it out so that you have an even proportion. This is 1.8 pounds for each loaf. Very sticky.
So you don't want to overmix this, right?
Correct. The honey in here is from Warm Colors Apiary. 1.8. So there's, spread it, and you're gonna bake it at 350, but I'll send you that recipe as well. The final product. Ta-da! And now I'm gonna grab the product for the ingredients for my scones. All right. For my scones, I'm keeping all the ingredients cold as possible. Using the local flour again, all purpose. butter. Then you're going to cut your butter with your paddle. Again, if you don't have a mixer, you can use 2 knives. You can cut the butter into the flour with 2 knives. Or if you have a dough cutter, even better. I like this recipe. This actually is a recipe for my sister. She said, make sure that if you're promoting my scone, it's called the Great Mary Lowe Scone recipe. But she and I have enjoyed this recipe for some time. What I like about it is that it doesn't have a lot of sugar. The only sugar, the sweetener that you're getting is from the yogurt.
So just to make sure I answered correctly, you can use any flaky cereal for that last recipe. Is that correct?
Correct. I also forgot to mention that eggs and oil were in the bottom of that as well. My timer for my bread.
So this is also on slow?
This is also on slow, correct. You speed it up, all your flour goes flying out. I'm gonna go ahead and add my powder and my salt in there as well. Again, you can use any yogurt that you want for this. My sister likes to use vanilla yogurt. I chose the Side Hills maple yogurt, you know, just because we're in the maple season. So why not? The thing with baking is you gotta have some time on your hands, you know. You wanna make bread, bread takes time. So you're gonna do 2 fermentations between after you mix your bread. So the fermentation allows, again, like I said, for your flavor to develop. So bread making takes time. So you punch it down after the first 45 minutes, and then you let it rise again. And then once you finish letting it rise again, then you're going to cut it and round it. Unfortunately, like I said, my kitchen's very hot. So all of the steps that I had lined up for you just went really fast. So I apologize for not showing you all those steps. So if you look in this this bowl, the flour isn't, the butter isn't completely mixed into the flour, and that's fine. I like to have little cubes of butter. And again, you don't want to overmix this. Mix it just so it comes together.
So can you still see bits of the butter, or is that all incorporated?
Yeah, you still see the bits of butter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna knead it for a little bit to let it come together and try not to overwork it. I don't want it to get hot, which is why, again, I had all my ingredients in the refrigerator, flour and everything. It's because you want everything as cold as possible. Because with the butter being in little chunks like that, that's the steam that makes it so flaky. So when you overwork your butter, then it's not quite as flaky. So the more you knead it, the hotter your ingredients become, then your butter melts. The other thing I want to mention too, when you're making bread, not necessarily quick bread, but when you're making regular bread, yeast trays, don't put a lot of flour down on your bench. Don't incorporate a lot of extra flour into your dough, just because it makes it tougher.
Mm.
So you can do one of two things here. You can either leave it in a whole round and bake it off that way, or you can go ahead and cut it into pieces and bake individual pieces. Okay.
About how thick is that? Is that?
That's about half an inch.
Okay, great.
So it goes on an ungreased lined sheet pan. You just brush it with some milk. And because it is the maple season, I have some maple sugar from Hadley Sugar Shack.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Just a little, because you know, there's no sugar in the dough, so why not? Just a little. So then you're gonna bake this at 425 for about 12 to 15 minutes, which I'm actually gonna go stick it in the oven, and I'm gonna pull my bread out. Can you bake this for me, please?
Pardon?
Bake this for me, please.
Bake it?
Yeah. 12 minutes.
12 minutes.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Feel free to ask them in the chat. Folks want to know if they can come and eat.
Yes, please.
If you add berries to a scone, do you just drop them in?
You can, but the thing about adding the berries is that they'll crush up and get watery, so it affects the product outcome. You can use dried, or you want to reconstitute the dry berries in a little water for about 5 minutes, and then make sure you strain them really well. But yeah, adding the fresh berries will crush it up and make it not quite as fluffy as you want it to be.
How about frozen?
Yeah, again, it adds more water
Okay.
to the product. So what I find interesting by having used 100% of the local bread flour is that it gives me really the crumb is, or the top is very different. I'm not sure I like this. So that's why the last one should perform better. The dough actually felt a lot better when I used half local and half General Mills.
Is that flour?
Yes, it's just flour, bread flour. Just put a little bit. So the reason why I'm putting a little bit of bread flour on here is when I go to score it or to cut it, to stipple cut it, it's not gonna let the knife get caught. And it also is a little bit decorative. Okay, so you're gonna use your blade, go straight across. Don't go down. Just use the length of your blade to go straight across. You can do it that way. You can do it long ways.
Why
But again, just using.
why do you score it?
So the reason why you score your bread is to allow for your gases to escape here. So the weakest area of your dough is gonna be where your gas wants to escape. So if I hadn't scored this at all, wherever the weakest area of that dough is, say where the seam was or something, it's gonna explode out this way, out that way. But when you score it, you give it a place that you want it to escape from.
Got it.
And then that way too, your bread looks nicer, because I've actually seen some really funny bread pictures since the lockdown has been in place, and people who forgot to score their bread, they have like these turtle looking breads. They're just really funny. Your banana bread was awesome. All right, this gets baked at 400, and I'm going to pass this off to one of my bakers, and I'll be right back. Yeah, that's fine.
So if you were going to bake that in a home oven, would you do 2 at a time, 1 at a time? Doesn't matter.
You can do the 4. I mean, they're small enough loaves. You can do the 4 on the
Okay.
one shelf at home. I did that size loaf. But if you notice, the flatbread is still very pliable.
Ooh. Nice.
You can even make a little pita pocket out of it.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I think I tried to meet your time frame.
Yes, that was
Oh, wait,
amazing.
one more thing. My dough has done its first. I've tried to push it. Should be 45 minutes rest, but so this is the dough that's been fermenting. Okay, take it out. And I flip it over, and then I'm letting my table do the work for me. I can tell already this dough is much better with the half local and the half General Mills, or you can use King Arthur, whatever. It's just, this dough is just so much more. The texture of it looks much better. So this is gonna give me a nicer loaf. I'm a little bit concerned about the loaves that are out there, but if you notice, I put it seam side up, basically just so I can grease the top of it, and then it goes seam side down, because again, you're wanting that smooth surface to trap those gases. And you just bag it up, and after 45 more minutes, you do the same thing. And then once you go after that second 45 minutes, then you turn it out, and you're going to cut it into 4 equal parts of about 1 pound, 1 ounce. And then you'll make little round balls just like that again. Let them rest covered for 20 minutes. And then you already saw the shaping part of it. So
Great. All
I
right.
think I got your time frame there.
Yes. Oh my
Any
goodness.
questions?
You are
Bread on
amazing.
speed.
That's what people are saying. You are amazing. Any other
Any questions for me?
Cardio plus bread making. That's a good day's. Yeah. Yeah.
It has been cardio.
Yes. Anything else? So everybody, if you haven't already seen the May schedule, Pam is going to be joining us again at the end of the month to do a session on baking with the seasons. So we're excited to
like the maple.
have her come back and show us some more techniques. So